The D-Day for America is here. Donald Trump has been elected as the 45th President of the United States of America. Cash News has, of course, been bringing you all the action from the elections. And, of course, from now on, we'll be bringing you a detailed analysis of the outcome. But for now, we are in conversation with Cash News editor Bharat Bhushan, from whom we'll be trying to understand the implications of this verdict for India as well as for the world in terms of American foreign policy and how it will look like under the Trump administration. Bharat, should we begin with India first? I mean, you've been you held this view all along. You've been saying in the newsroom that Trump is a better bet for India than Hillary Clinton. He might be bad for the US, but then he's not going to be bad for India as well as for the world. So let's begin with India first of all. What do you think Trump administration's relationship with India will look like?
Well, I've been saying that Trump is good for the world, including India.
Including India, yeah.
Trump is good for the world because he's a disruptor. He questions the basic premises of American foreign policy. He's against unfettered capitalism at home. He's against globalization and open borders. And most importantly, he's against America's muscular interventionist foreign policy. Now, these assumptions have not been questioned since the end of Second World War. Here is a man who's questioning all these things. He may be very bad for America, very bad for the liberals and for feminists and for blacks and for Latinos and whoever else who live in America.
Basically cherished ideals of a democratic framework.
Absolutely, he's questioning all that. Now, why is it good for the world? Because he says, what on earth are we doing in Syria? Why are we in the Middle East? So he suggests that the US do a deal with Russia, cut its losses, and go back home. He's saying, why are we providing a nuclear umbrella to Japan and to South Korea? Let them go nuclear. Why should America spend so much money on them? Unleash them on China. Let them defend themselves. He's saying that America's been diddled by the world on trade deals. He wants to renegotiate them. He says that he will ban immigration, legal migration as well as illegal immigrants. So, what are these? Which of these factors impact India? I think before I tell you that, I must say that irrespective of who comes to the White House, a Republican president or a Democratic president, there's been a bipartisan consensus as far as Indo-US relations are concerned. So you would notice that Indian relations with the US, which started improving in the second presidency of Clinton, have continued improving through the two presidencies of Republican George W. Bush and Democrat Barack Obama. So I think as far as the strategic ties are concerned, strategic relationship is concerned, they will continue.
There will be a broad continuation.
Absolutely. They are personality proof and ideology proof and party proof. Where we will have some problems is in the economic sphere. Because Trump is an isolationist, protectionist, he will impose tariffs on Mexico, on China. Those tariffs will also impact on India.
Maybe harsher visa regimes.
Absolutely. So trade in services will be impacted. H-1B visa, he's threatened to remove this non-immigrant work visa for professionals from other countries. Now, Indian engineers and techies, they go in large numbers on H-1B visas to go and work for Indian software companies or even American software companies. He's also against insourcing and outsourcing of jobs. Outsourcing of jobs, if it is reduced or banned, will impact Indian software companies in a big way. So these are the things that will come because of Trump. However, India and US have always had an uneasy economic relationship. Largely because the US Trade Representative's Office, USTR, is almost hostile to India. It keeps attacking India on India's intellectual property regime, on our investment policies, on our trade policies, on our insistence that there be indigenous content on project imports. So those issues will continue and USTR will continue taking us to WTO. But there would be other negatives.
Obama himself had adopted an anti-outsourcing posture for quite some time now.
Absolutely, but I'm saying that this man has announced that as part of his electoral promise. So his supporters would insist that he deliver on his election promises and not let it be merely election rhetoric.
But all I'm saying was, in that respect, it will only be a continuation of what America has already been indicating under Obama by his adoption of the anti-outsourcing posture.
But with more negatives on the economic front.
Absolutely. What about on the security front? How is the Trump administration going to be towards India, towards Pakistan, towards the larger AFPAC region?
On Pakistan, Trump has said that India will be a check on Pakistan. His statements on Pakistan have been pretty negative. But I don't believe that he will give up on Pakistan completely. There are other factors at work. But he won't give the kind of comfort that Pakistan got from previous administrations. So he will be probably tougher on Pakistan. But he won't give up on Pakistan in the sense that he's not going to abandon Pakistan. Pakistan is a nuclear state, and Americans will not give up on a nuclear state and let it fail. So the engagement with Pakistan could continue. My fear is it might even become deeper engagement if it finds that isolation of Pakistan is not working or is not leading to desired results. As far as Afghanistan is concerned,
then again it will not be beneficial for India.
May not be beneficial, but I'm saying if he's tough, it will be beneficial. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, I think all administrations, irrespective of their political leanings, are committed to an orderly pullout, a managed pullout, and an honorable pullout from Afghanistan, and I think that will continue.
So if on the economic front he is not going to be really beneficial, administration is not really going to be beneficial to India, if he is not going to be harsh towards Pakistan or towards moving ahead with his isolation of Pakistan, these are two clear disadvantages for India.
Absolutely, but he's a businessman, he wants to do deals. He will do deals with India. On trade, he will do a deal. Provided we come to a meeting point. So it's easier to do a deal with the Republicans than it is with the Democrats, because the Democrats come with a lot of political agenda of human rights, of free speech, of converting your democracy in their image.
Right.
Now these problems can most acutely seen in the case of how they talk about China. If you compare, for example, the statements of Hillary Clinton and Trump on China, Trump is all about business, saying that I'm going to declare China a currency manipulator, I'm going to come down heavily on Chinese hacking, I'm going to force them to renegotiate trade deals or impose heavy tariffs on them. And what was Hillary Clinton saying? She was saying that China must ensure there are no human rights violations, they must ensure free speech, and so on and so forth. So, all wishy-washy stuff. And here is this guy who's actually saying that I want to engage China on economic issues.
How will that impact the conduct of American foreign policy towards China and its impact on India's relationship with China, or rather India's insecurities vis-a-vis China?
I think it will deal with China, as I said, in a more business-like fashion and look for its own advantages. And US foreign policy is all about business. It doesn't matter who comes to power.
Right.
But this guy is more business oriented. So on currency manipulation, on trade deals, etc., he'll be harsh on China. He will also try and contain China by letting go of Japan and South Korea. Because he's saying that if South Korea wants to go nuclear, let it go nuclear. Because North Korea has already conducted 5 tests and is developing missiles. If Japan wants to develop nuclear weapons, let it do so and deal with China. So, if these two countries go nuclear, they will put immense amount of pressure on China. That's very different from having an American nuclear umbrella. So he's saying, why should America get involved? So he'll contain China, but he'll also deal with China. And he's not going to try and convert communist China into a democratic Republic of China.
Okay.
How will it impact India? I don't think. You see, if he's harsh on China, then this whole business of India, using American pressure to get into the nuclear suppliers group, etc., will become even more difficult. And as far as India-US ties are concerned, border disputes are concerned, he's going to leave us to our own devices.
Okay. So on another major international challenge, you've also said earlier that based on Trump's claims, it seems quite evident that he will stop the war in Syria. He might cut a deal with Russia, and he seems interested in pulling back all American involvement in Syria. On what basis does this seem imminent to you?
Well, I'm not saying that end of the war in Syria is near. I'm merely saying that his attitude is different. He wants to do a deal with Russia. He wants to fight only one war in Syria, that is the war against ISIS. Currently,
not against Assad's regime.
No, America has been fighting a 2-front war in Syria.
Yeah.
That is removal of Bashar al-Assad and ousting of ISIS from the areas it has captured. He's not interested in ousting Assad. He's saying that let's join hands with Russia to fight ISIS, which is a more sober policy than an interventionist policy which says that Bashar al-Assad is not good for Syrians. Let Syrians decide that. Why does America have to decide that?
Okay.
But will the war come to end because of this? I don't think so, because there are other players there. There is Turkey with its new Ottoman aspirations. It wants parts of Syria.
Yeah.
It's not going to give up its ambitions because Trump has become the president of America.
Yeah.
And there is competition between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Please don't forget that Assad's regime is a Shia regime supported by Iran. The Saudis, who initially funded ISIS and now perhaps are funding the Free Syrian Army, or those extremists who go under the name of Free Syrian Army, also want influence in Syria. So local actors may not want an end to the war, even if Trump wants an end to the war.
All right. What about Russia? Also, in continuation of this policy towards Syria, because Russia is heavily involved, but also independent of Syria. What is America's relationship with Russia going to look like under Trump?
It's not going to be as adversarial as it is at present. In fact, this was being used by somebody like President Obama against Trump. I was surprised that in his last speech, President Obama referred to President Putin and Trump, telling Trump that your friend Putin might like this. Okay, I'm reducing it to a personal relationship and suggesting that it's not a good relationship. But I see no reason why US should not talk to Russia. Russia is a big power today. May not be as big as America, but it has ambitions. It has influence in the not only in the erstwhile Soviet states, but in other parts of the world. And I think Trump will deal with Russia, talk to them, have a dialogue with them. He will not be adversarial. He will not fight them in Syria.
What makes you believe that? What makes you believe that?
Statements up to now. I'm only going by his statements. I don't know what he will eventually do, who his advisors will be. Because US foreign policy is not made only by the president. It's also made by corporates. It's also made by the military-industrial complex. And within the administration, there is no single institution which builds foreign policy. There is the White House, there is the State Department, there is the Pentagon, and there is the US Trade Representative's Office. They together formulate US foreign policy.
Okay.
So let's see, how these forces come together, who's heading these institutions, who are the main advisors of Trump. We don't know who they are at present. So one has to go by his electoral statements.
Okay. Moving on one more area towards the Pacific, how is Trump policy going to look like?
Well, Obama had this policy of pivot to Asia, rebalancing of the Asia-Pacific region. And India thought that we had a role in it. And we had started joint military exercises with Japan and with America. And there was talk of a quadrilateral strategic alliance, bringing in Australia, etc. All that might go for a toss once he withdraws the nuclear umbrella from East Asia.
Okay. Are you discounting the possibility that all that Trump has said all this while might just be rhetoric, and he might renege on all the promises that he has thrown to his Republican voters?
He'll find it very difficult to do so, because his supporters have voted for him based on a certain program, on certain promises. He may modulate them a bit, but I don't think he can throw all that into the dustbin and say, oh, that was just rhetoric, they were just jumlas, and go on to do something completely different. I don't think he can afford to do that.
But he has borrowed a lot of idioms from the from India's electoral contest of 2014. What makes you think he won't borrow the jumla idiom?
He may or he may not. I don't think he's borrowed from India. I think it's in the nature of democratic politics that occasionally leaders emerge who appeal to the lowest common denominator, the worst instincts in human beings, and they win elections through polarization and through division. That's what he has done. But I'm saying in America, if there are interests who have supported him because of what he's saying, because they want him to disrupt the establishment consensus that has persisted up to now, I don't think they will be very happy if he were to break all those promises and not do at least 60-70% of what he has promised.
All right, so that's Bharat's assessment for you for how the for American foreign policy under Donald Trump is going to look like. Bharat is going to be here over the next couple of months also, and we'll be getting back to Bharat every time he's proved right or wrong, and we'll be keeping a track of how Trump's presidency eventually unfolds. That's all in this edition of this conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in.